Yep, I'll do that. There we go. And it's to this computer. And let me check one more thing. I'd like to do it live to Zoom, to YouTube too. Zoom has this bad habit. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it has this bad habit of updating every 3 months, and they change everything every time they do it. I think it's designed to prevent those of us who are old from uh, becoming like Joe Biden,
Hmm.
um, quite frankly. So I don't live stream live on YouTube. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so it's out on the YouTube, but that should automatically record it. So what I just do. So, uh, hi Alex, how are you? It's nice to have you with
Oh,
us. A-
yeah.
And
Thank you very much, Joel. We're glad to be here.
excellent. And so you released this morning
Hmm.
uh, your 2024 direct-to-consumer report. You, of course, are Alex Koral, the uh, regulatory counsel for Sovos uh, ship, shipping.
Yeah, ship
I
compliant
can't
is
I
the
can't say it.
historical
Yeah,
name.
Sovos ShipCompliant.
Right.
And you've been in that job forever, it seems like.
Mhm. Well, I remember a time before, just about 10 years now. So, but
Well,
but getting up there, definitely.
yeah, that in the university setting, that would earn you tenure,
Yeah, I'm
assuming you wrote
hoping to get
enough
that last
papers
degree
and all
then.
that, you know. So that's good. So start off. Let's just start off by just asking you to give us a quick summary of what the report says.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the sit next we've been doing this report for several years now. I believe this is the third report we've done specifically looking at the spirits direct to consumer market. This is sort of a carry on from another. We do an annual wine direct to consumer shipping report for many, many years now, looking at that market, how the who is succeeding, who is growing within wine shipping. And as the years have progressed, and we've been getting more and more interest in spirit shipping, in beer shipping, we have decided the last few years to reach out and engage in those markets as well. Of course, one of the big factors is that the direct-to-consumer spirits and beer market is so much less developed than it is for wine due to a lot of restrictive state laws. So instead of being able to necessarily say, how much revenue is coming in, where spirits are being shipped to, this is instead a consumer report. So we have engaged a polling service to reach out, connect with consumers and just non-consumers across the country and ask them various questions about their awareness of and interest in the possibility of direct-to-consumer shipping of spirits. And as I've said, we've done this for the last few years, and uh, surprise, there is a tremendous amount of interest among consumers and even non-consumers alike
Yeah,
in many of
I
these.
was sort of surprised by the numbers, quite frankly.
Mm.
Um,
And these have only gotten higher over the years. It's this interest is just increasing as time goes on.
yeah, so I think your report showed 65% of Americans in general support
Hmm.
direct shipping of spirits, which I thought was a pretty good number. And then, of course, for the craft buyers, uh, it was what, 81%, I think.
Yes, 81. That was responding to specifically changing the laws, and then even 85% of craft spirits consumers said that if the laws were changed, they would engage in this market. So yes, no surprise there, but craft consumers want greater access, want greater availability of all the different brands that are produced across the country, but not necessarily made available in their local stores.
There's a lot of opportunity to change laws because only 9 states allow direct shipping right now. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, New York recently changed their rules. They're about to begin direct consumer shipping of spirits in just about a month now. So we're very excited about that.
Um, what led to the change in New York, which may suggest what other people have to do?
Well, again, this is just the state of New York responding to consumers and local producers alike in trying to expand the availability, expand markets. There was an effort the last couple of years, and there was negotiations, figuring out the parameters of how it should work. And eventually they were able to lobby their legislators and produce a successful bill that was signed by the governor recently. So it's just a matter of timing coming together with interest and availability. And there are many other states where similar bills were introduced, and they have come up against various opposition. But we are again hopeful that the success that we saw in New York can translate there. You know, California, a similar state where they have been trying to pass a proper interstate direct shipping bill for spirits the last few years, and every year we're hopeful that they will finally get this. And I think that when we do get big states like New York, like California opening up, this is how we can further demonstrate to everywhere the viability of this market as a safe and productive one with along with the rest of the alcohol industry.
Yeah, and uh, California doesn't even allow in-state shipping, do they, or do they?
Well, that's the thing is coming out of this was a COVID provision that they have carried on the last few years. And so in what 2020, now in 2024, 2023, 2022, they passed a bill that said we are going to allow in-state shipping, but only for 1 year. We're doing this temporarily as we build out the proper full interstate bill. And so California's kind of been, let's say, kicking the can down the road a little bit the last few years. But they recognize that it is under the Granholm decision. This was a decision back in 2005. The Supreme Court said that direct shipping has to be made national if it's going to be made locally. So California recognizes the need to establish a proper interstate shipping bill. They just haven't figured out all the details. And again, so they have passed one more temporary bill allowing it through the rest of 2025, but they should be working on it again in 2025. And we'll hopefully produce a bill that will allow distilleries across the country to service California consumers.
Do you have any idea of how much tax revenue California has generated for itself by allowing it on these temporary bills?
I'm not sure about that. You know, since that these are only California distilleries doing it, presumably these would be a lot of sales coming from California distilleries that might be happening anyway. So I'm not sure how much additional revenue is coming from that. When we do see, you know, analogizing this more to the wine industry, uh, we have seen over the last 20 years, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars going to states from excise tax and sales tax generation from interstate direct shipping. Pretty much all of that is largely novel revenue that they would not have seen otherwise because this is not necessarily displacing in-state stores. These are additional sales that are happening. And because the laws that are set out for direct shipping say that a remote seller needs to pay taxes as if the sale occurred in the state, these are the destination states receiving that tax revenue and both sales tax, excise tax. Um, and it really can add up over the years. So for the last couple of years in California, I really don't have any specific details, but I can imagine those are a few extra millions, maybe tens of millions of dollars that they've earned. And if they were to expand it to, you know, allowing Kentucky distilleries, Tennessee distilleries to ship to California consumers, that would be even more revenue.
Sure. And I would assume that they don't they don't have to well, yeah, I would assume that passing these bills would not require them to allow retailers to ship out-of-state retailers to ship into their state. So it's not a threat to the retail industry in California or New York or any place else.
No, there are separate provisions and statutes for retailers versus producer shipping. Again, looking back more at the wine industry, there are about 14 states that do allow out-of-state retailers to do direct consumer shipping to their consumers. And again, those are generally, you know, again, largely restricted to wine shipping states. But we don't really see too much actual direct competition when it comes to these sales. You know, consumers are always looking for convenience, and if their local markets have the products they want, then those are the stores that consumer will go to in the moment. Really, where we see a lot of interstate shipping from retailers is much more in imported products or those rare and exclusive products that don't get sold very well or are distributed often. And so this is really about just adding, creating more opportunities. But No, if California were to allow distillers to do direct consumer shipping, there is no rules that say they would have to extend that to retailers at the same time.
Yeah,
There is a little bit of an open question about whether if a state allows local retailers to do direct shipping within their state, if they would need to open it up to national retailers, but that's still in the courts for the last several years. So
I
it's
was
an
going to
open
say
question.
I'm sure that the lawyers are out working that question right now and on both sides and trying to provide an annuity for their grandchildren, if not their children.
Yeah, exactly, and so far those cases have been coming down in favor of the state position to allow in-state only shipping by retailers. But there is some cases that seem like they might take an opposite position, and if that happens, then we'll need to figure out proper national rules so that some consumers in other states are not benefiting in ways that other consumers in other states can't.
Yeah. If I was going to make a bet, given the current makeup of the court, I would say the state position's going to win because this court seems to be very much inclined to say whenever they can, it's a public choice. You guys figure it out. Our job is to say no,
Yeah,
which,
that's an interesting point. I think that there is also a fairly pro-market bent to the court as well. So when we've seen the last few cases, Tennessee Wine and Spirits was the last big Supreme Court case that dealt with alcohol issues, and there the court was pretty in favor of the consumer position that the state barriers don't really make sense in our current environment anymore.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it might be a little bit more of a toss-up when it comes to shipping issues, but I wouldn't count them out.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I'm sure it will eventually end up before the Supremes and we'll see who writes the opinion and what the decision is. So
Yeah,
let's
bet
go
within
back.
my life at least.
What's that?
I bet within my lifetime at least. I'm
Yeah. Well, it might be in your lifetime, maybe mine. Although
hopefully. Yes.
that's less likely, probably. Um, so let's go back to your report. Alaska also completed regulations for implementing the direct to consumer shipping. So talk to us a little bit about that. What happened there?
Yeah, Alaska. This was an interesting case because Alaska has actually allowed fairly liberal, almost non protected direct shipping of all products for decades now. Is they've operated under it was an attorney general opinion from, I believe, the 90s, basically saying that the state would just not enforce restrictions on direct shipping, which effectively allowed breweries, distilleries, wineries, retailers, anybody to ship directly to consumers within the state, as long as they abided by local option restrictions. So Alaska has actually many locations that are dry, prohibit the sale or importation of alcohol. So direct shippers would have to abide by those rules. But otherwise, they were very liberal they were very free to ship into the state as they were. There were no licenses, no tax requirements. But on the other hand, this was all based on a attorney general opinion from 20 years ago and or even longer ago. And so if the current attorney general decided to review the law and change their minds, direct shipping could have been gone away with in just an instant, really. So a couple of years ago, Alaska passed an omnibus that really reformed its entire alcohol industry or a lot of the alcohol rules within the state, including their direct shipping rules. And so they added specific rules following the guidelines, the parameters that have worked in other states, these model bills that have been adopted. And so now going forward to ship into Alaska, it is now restricted only to producers. So this still means that breweries, distilleries, wineries can ship direct to Alaska consumers. They will need to be licensed by the state of Alaska. They will need to pay taxes to Alaska, generally just the excise taxes, because Alaska does not have any state sales taxes. They will also need to make sure there are doing age verifications at the point of sale. Preventing sales to minors is a critical part of this market, and so just taking those positive actions to ensure the safety of their shipments. There are volume limits in Alaska, so you can only ship so much to a consumer. And Alaska also introduced production caps on breweries and distilleries. So where previously breweries and distilleries of any size could ship to Alaska consumers, now it's only craft smaller producers. I'm not sure of the exact number of production, number of gallons that is a limit, but it's focusing more on smaller producers, whereas there is no restriction on the size of wineries that can ship to Alaska consumers. So
but
this is more just clarifying the rules and creating a little bit more control over the market, which it frankly is welcome for everybody.
yeah, so the big guys, the Diageos and the Pernod Ricards and the Brown Formans, they figure can take care of themselves basically, and
Mhm.
but Coral Spirits Company may have a different
Exactly.
problem, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I can get my distillery up and going and now have some more consumers.
Yeah. Okay, good. So let's see. Your report notes that in the case of New York, I think that you say it's like a $4 billion a year market up there in New York State. Is that right?
I would presume if that's what the report says, and that sounds accurate to me. Of course, one of the big limits in New York is New York is operates under what's called a reciprocity system.
Hmm.
It's the only state to have these sort of reciprocity rules in the country that say they will only license distilleries who are operate in states that themselves will license New York distilleries for direct consumer shipping. And so New York effectively is limiting their consumers to purchasing only from the other 8 states that will allow direct shipping of spirits. Of course, as more states do join the market, do extend laws to allow direct shipping of spirits, that will increase. But I think we can certainly see a lot more potential shippers to New York. And actually, now that I think about it, I think that 4 billion seems a little bit large because that is the reported number of the entire direct shipping wine market. That's the annual volume. So I think that spirits would probably be somewhat less than that, and then of
I
course,
might have misread
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But I think, it's certainly New York is a huge state with a lot of consumers, a lot of very educated, aware consumers who want greater access. So I could certainly see, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars in potential sales coming from New York alone.
Right.
$4 billion, I think, would be a stretch, though.
Yeah. Um, you know, in my mind, the reciprocity statute makes perfect sense. 20, 30 years ago, I was an elected public official on the local level. So I do have that sort of mentality of looking out for, my constituents. Yeah, I learned that very quickly, and I don't care what the rest of the country does, how it affects my own people. And to me, that makes perfect sense. If you're not going to let my guys in, why should I let your guys in? So I think it
Mhm.
makes perfect sense. All you need to make everybody go the way you want them to is to have New York, California, and probably Texas, and you've got it solved.
Yeah, I think that getting those big states would really spur that, and I can definitely see the reason behind the reciprocity rules. I just think it's interesting how most other states don't
Yeah,
rely on those sort of rules. There was actually Oregon recently had similar rules related to beer shipping, but decided to remove those rules from their enforcement after being sued by some Washington breweries. So there's a little bit of question about the constitutionality of reciprocity, even if it makes some logical sense.
right.
Personally, I think it's maybe a little small-minded. Is a matter of enabling greater consumer access. So we shouldn't necessarily think about this as competition from out-of-state producers, but allowing our consumers to have greater access to all the products that are produced across the state. And so, if you say we're going to not allow it from certain states, then those consumers that are looking for Tennessee bourbon are going to be left out of things there.
Yeah, fair enough. Um, you know, as I said, that was 30 years ago, and I'm
Sure, sure.
still a bit back in that era. So, um, your report takes note of the fact that a lot of people think that direct shipping is fine, but they're not so sure about the retailer side of it. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there. Is it the fear of the retailers, or is it the fear of by retailers of
Well,
competition?
the report says direct to blah, blah, direct to consumer shipping of spirits is popular, and many feel that it's fine if only in-state distillers have that right. At least someone is shipping. However, in-state only shipping is uncon. So the way I'm reading that is
Mhm.
basically, it's fine for the distillers, but not fine for the retailers, is how I'm reading that.
Yeah, I think this gets back to probably some of the fears you were expressing yourself a minute ago of the lawmakers and even consumers are really focused on local constituents and maximizing local revenue, and so just sort of need to be have those fears addressed and assuaged. That when there are concerns about not being able to regulate out-of-state interests or enforce laws against out-of-state interests, how that's really not the case. Is that there are ways to set up these laws that do create greater control and can relieve some of those concerns about again, the risk of non-enforcement of out-of-state interests or competition from out-of-state interests. This is really about raising the boats for everybody and increasing the entire alcohol market across the nation. And so, while I think, again, there are some recognizable local interests that may dominate this argument. That's not really the way that we think regulators and even consumers, retailers, distillers, producers, everybody should be going about this. This is about enabling proper national market and not having local parochial interests dominate this industry.
Fair enough. Now, your report notes that there's been an increase in support for direct-to-consumer spirit shipping. That's good. Um, are you able to talk about consumer preferences, how that's changed, perhaps?
Yeah, I think that, so for so long, direct shipping has been really focused on the wine industry. And I think that the other product types and consumers alike have really opened up to that and recognizing the success and the growth that the wine industry has seen from this and saying, well, why not for beer? Why not for spirits? And I think part of this also relates to the more universal approach that a lot of, especially younger consumers, are taking with alcohol, where they're not focused on one product type or the other. They're maybe purchasing direct shipping wine and saying, "Well, I would like to have some spirits at the same time," or looking around from other producers, and so I think that can affect the interest in changing these laws and expanding direct shipping to more product types. We want it all. We want it all now these days. And if the laws are not meeting that demand, then the laws, I think, need to change. And that's sort of the message that I think a lot of consumers can take from this
I sort
and are expressing in the report.
I think I recall seeing in the report something to the effect of direct shipping actually will help distributors and retailers, which is counterintuitive. So you want to explain how something that's counterintuitive is fine and dandy?
Yeah. This was actually a really interesting result from the report is that I think it was something like 92% of respondents said that if they had bought made a purchase from direct consumer shipping, they would look for that brand in their retail stores. They would want to buy it again, and like I said, from more convenient sources, frankly. And I think this reflects, again, something we have seen long in the wine industry is that direct shipping just enables greater access, greater direct communication between brands and consumers. And consumers then take that and respond, and they want to find those brands wherever they shop. So there are tens of thousands of brands produced in the United States, and there are only so many retail stores and so many, especially so many distributors these days who can handle all those brands. So it's much harder for especially smaller brands to get distribution in all the states. Direct shipping offers a lifeline to a lot of those brands to enable them, again, to connect with consumers, demonstrate their value, demonstrate what are the good products that these consumers want, and then build on that market value. Go to distributors and say, "See, we have presence here. We have available sales. So you should pick us up. We can make these brands available." And like we said, it really lifts all tides where a producer is able to, on their own, establish a presence in a market and then use that to build out even bigger presence within the three-tier system. This is not an exclusive market. This is not saying you can go this way only. This is all about building everybody up. That's what is the ultimate goal of expanding direct shipping and direct sales for everybody.
I've
It's all
always
about meeting a consumer demand.
Yeah, I've always thought too that direct shipping had one big benefit for a distributor, and that to some extent it would help them select what product out of all the smaller products that come in the door they might want to carry. Because if somebody walks in the door and says, "Hey, I'm selling," pick a number, 25,000 cases in
Mhm.
your state or your territory, you might be inclined to listen to them. Whereas if somebody walks in and says, "Hey, I'm selling 5,000 cases," or is forced to say, "I'm selling 5,000 cases," that may, quite frankly, be just too small. I've been told by a couple of distributors that, you know, they can't handle 5,000 cases. It's just, they admit it's too small. It just gets tucked in a corner of the warehouse and
Exactly.
overlooked.
Yeah, no, we've seen many wineries, as I've said, over the last decades, going to distributors, providing these sales numbers, and then getting distribution deals because of their proof within direct shipping. And I think you make a great point about those smaller producers, which really make up the vast bulk of the number of both wineries, distilleries. Many of them are producing, only a few thousand cases, maybe 10,000 cases per year. And they really can't meet the demand, meet the volume that a distributor would want. Just because they can't meet that demand that the consumer, that the distributor would be able to push, I don't see why that means those brands should be excluded from a state's market, though. And so, again, those consumers will be harmed by the lack of access. So direct shipping really, again, provides a lot of support for those smaller brands to, again, get a more national presence, meet the consumers wherever they're at, and not be excluded from a state just because that's how the state laws are set up. So it's just all about opportunity and expanding the presence for everybody. And certainly not trying to take down any established methods or otherwise supplant existing systems. This is just about bigging everybody up.
Yeah, and of course, we know what's happening in the wine business, where wineries are actually failing now because of the drop in demand. And I don't think we've seen that too much in the spirits business yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see that occur in the spirits area either, which goes to your point about it being direct shipping being a lifeline for the producer. I was
Right.
interested to see that your monthly purchase intent figure, which says that it remains high. This is, of course, I guess, is talking about direct to consumer purchase intent remaining high with an annual spending of about $1,500, which I thought was a pretty interesting number.
Mm. Yeah, and I think again reflects the consumer interest, the consumer demand that is out there, and just shows that this is a viable market. And this is not necessarily a panacea. I think to your point about market struggles is we don't think that this is going to fix everything for everybody. It's just a matter of not letting state laws, not letting the legal system act as a further barrier to the strain that is existing in the alcohol market.
From your experience, how do the distilleries, or for that matter, how do the wineries use direct shipping to, you talk about it increasing positive opinions and sales being among the benefits of direct shipping. So can you talk about it from that standpoint to me a little bit?
Yeah, and I think this is, reflects changing consumer opinions, consumer interests is, well, one, we have the internet now, and people think they can buy everything on the internet whenever, and so they are looking for this. They're reaching out and demanding it. And if they go to a winery, if they go to a distillery and find they're unable to make a purchase online, again, perhaps because the state law says that it's improper, that will degrade the relationship between the consumer and that brand. So being able to provide that direct connection to demonstrate the value of the brand on a direct basis is extremely powerful. And then when we get into the concept of clubs and other outlets like that, a brand can really demonstrate what are these special products, the ones that you may not really hear about, the ones that are very highly allocated. That only further engenders a consumer to that brand, and again makes them seek them out in all corners. And so this is again just about the personal connection that I think consumers increasingly want with the brands they have. And I think it's very easy to kind of glibly talk about millennials and Gen Z and making it all about them, but that is very much the case. Is we want that understanding of these are the things I like, and well, I like them because they have this a personal relationship with me, and
Right.
that's
And,
something you can really demonstrate through direct shipping.
yeah, and I notice in your report that it says that 77% of your regular craft spirits drinkers say they'd be likely to sign up for a spirit subscription club if direct to consumer shipping was available, which I think says a lot. Um, and I suspect that that's a powerful incentive for the craft spirits people to want to have it available to them. What really interested me is the demographic data. Um, Annual household income of 100,000 or more, typical purchaser. Um, Between the ages of 21 and 34, I thought those guys were not drinking anymore. I thought they were only doing non-alcohol. And college grads or above college grads, big numbers in all three of those categories and over, yeah, overwhelmingly male too. So, nice demographics there for the future growth of the spirits industry into the craft spirits industry. So, uh, really significant stuff. Uh, and let's see, most of them, no, not most of them. Well, yeah, 47% reside in the South, which is a interesting number. I wonder why the South wants to have direct shipping and other areas don't. Interesting.
Mm.
Um, And a point of danger, I guess, is that 87% are parents of minors, and the urban split is about 40% live in urban areas and urban or suburban areas. So that's an interesting thing. Well, Alex, I think this is a really fascinating report, and I thank you for your time. Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like us to have covered?
Let me see. I think that we've hit on a lot of the big things. I think that we just really want to iterate how, widespread this interest is, and again, not necessarily limited to standard craft drinkers or even those demographics that you discussed there. Certainly there is a certain type of person who is more interested in craft spirits, more able to make larger purchases and cover those shipping costs and all of that. But when we look at the large numbers of just everybody who responded to the survey, not merely the drinkers who are in favor of changing laws, in favor of creating greater access. I think to your point around how many parents of children were in favor of this, noting that we can, negate some of those fears around improper shipments, illegal shipments. We can make this a safe and effective market. Just stressing the widespread interest among this and the recognition that existing state laws are really not designed to meet the demand that is going on and increasing. And so just we hope that consumers and producers alike will take this report and hopefully find something interesting in it and maybe use this as fodder to go on and advocate for changing laws so we can finally shift our report to reporting on revenue in this market, not necessarily just on interest in changing the laws. We want this to succeed, as we've seen it with the wind wine, and we think that it can again, a safe and effective manner. And we're here to support that.
Well, Alex Carroll, thank you so much for your time, and it's a great report. Good to talk to you again, and I guess we'll be talking again when you come out with your wine report later on this year. So,
Yeah, just a few
uh,
months now.
or maybe next year, depending upon when your cycle is. But excellent report. So thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you again soon. So take care, my friend,
Great. Thank you
and
too.
and thanks for everybody who's watching this. Take care, everybody. Have a great day. Bye bye. And